Hey everyone, welcome to Time on Track, a podcast where we navigate the high-speed racing and constantly changing storylines of Formula One. F1. I'm just going to say F1 from now on. I was trying to be a little too Barry Wright smooth with the intro, and no, I'm just going to say F1 for now. But I am Ricardo Sime. I'm here with Amarveer.
Hey everyone.
Now I have to say your last name. Amarveer
Brar.
Amarveer Brar.
Yeah,
okay.
There it is.
I'm here with Amarveer Brar. We are, I don't even know what episode
I think this is episode 13.
You know, yes. Ooh. Let's just make it 14. Forget 13. We'll just write 14 on the episode.
I think we should change the script. 13 is a new lucky number. Let's keep it as 13.
Okay. You got confidence on that one. I'll follow you. But yep, we are here to talk about the results of Spa. We are about a week since the race happened, and I feel like it's actually a good thing because it's given me some time to cool down. It's been my cool down room week from that race, and also start talking a little bit about silly season and what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
But before we jump into all of those things, question of the day, of course. What are you wearing, Amarveer?
I am wearing on my wrist, which I just took it off actually, is the Brew. My God, they're gonna kill me. What is this watch called? I don't remember. But anyway, it's the Brew, the Brew titanium Brew watch that I picked up at the windup in San Francisco. Love this watch. It's the titanium one. Doesn't have like the same colors as like the retro dial. It's got kind of more of like a stoic finish to it. Great watch, really nice, light on the wrist. Actually, surprising use case for me on this watch. I end up wearing it a lot more than I thought because for my work, I have to wear shirts and ties and suits a lot. And sometimes it is nice to have a watch that fits under the cuff. And I usually wear a lot of sport watches. So this has gotten a lot of time as I've had a lot of instances where I have to wear kind of a jacket recently. So didn't expect to be wearing it for that, but I do it a lot now.
Have you had like what is that under your wrist?
Yeah.
Kind of reaction?
A couple times. And usually I know what kind of watch I'm wearing. I don't just say, I guess I do. I say, this is a Brew. And I don't go into actual details about it. And I tell them about, the company and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, amazing watch. I really like it. What about you?
Cool. So I guess we both decided it was Titanium Day. I am wearing one of your local brands. They did this collaboration. It's the James brand and Timex.
Nice.
It's their Expedition collaboration that they did a little while back. I started wearing this simply for the fact that as you collect more and more watches in your life, you get to a point where like you almost have to remind yourself like, okay, yes, all the cool, expensive, interesting things are interesting, but sometimes it's just nice to just put like a simple watch on your wrist. Like no care in the world. Like it's just a nice, good, sturdy watch. And it grounds you because you're just like this could be good for me no matter what. Like, you start asking yourself those crazy questions. Do I really need like all those big watches? Yeah. Eventually you go into the, I do need them, but you do. But it's still nice to just have something and like it just be like a really good, simple watch. And I've actually had so much fun wearing this. It's kind of become like my default like dad watch.
Oh yeah, the do everything watch.
The do everything watch. Like I just like when I'm with Logan, like I just have this on, and like he likes it so much because he'll just grab at it.
Yeah,
I can't lie. The past few days, I've been wearing like some of the G-Shocks that we have in our office, like really bright colors. So those like really attracted him as well. But he just liked how like the strap matches my shirt, and he just went down a rabbit hole, and I was just like,
you're starting him off, huh?
Yes. I was like, yes.
I like that.
So, it won't be long before I get him his first like digital Casio, but for now I'll just continue with like analog watches with him.
I hear you.
So that he can tell the time without, reading it. So
I hear what you're saying about the one do it all watch. Like I feel that way with my Tudor Ranger, which is, I mean, it's a simple watch. Like I know it's not the most loved Tudor by everyone, but man, it does everything. I've done a lot with it, and sometimes I can think, why do I need a bunch of other watches when I have this? But then I wear my Brew metric titanium. You see, guys, I know the name of the watch. It's a metric. And I'm like, this is fun. It's different. There's a lot, there's a little pop of color, the orange on it, and the titanium's nice. And I'm like, yeah, I do like having a lot of watches. This is nice.
Yeah. Okay. So that is our wrist wear for the day. And you know what? Let's just jump straight into Spa, because man, I haven't had this many ranges of emotion in quite some time. And it might not be for what you guys think it is, but you know what? Let's before we talk about the race, let's of course talk about qualifying. Qualifying was, I think, it was pretty interesting. We had a couple of things we were dealing with. We had Max, who had a 10-place grid penalty for getting a new PU.
Right.
So he basically would start no higher than 10. And I believe we had Yuki, who had
Yuki. So Max could start no higher than
3 races later.
Max could start no higher than 10th, and Yuki could start no higher than 60th. So so good. His race was going to start pretty. He knew where he was going with that race.
Pretty far back. But yeah, so we had. But that's the interesting thing with Max that I like. Like it makes no difference to him. He's going to go for that pole position, like no matter what. Like,
and he was fast.
Like he definitely was fast. In fact, I was range of emotion. I started off that week like, oh God damn it, like oh man, Dak, oh gosh darn it. We'll beat the earlier word that I said. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Red Bull is back. Like, darn it. Like, what did we say the week before? You can't count. We were talking about Lando Norris. Like, nothing is counted. You can't talk about how great you are, and we'll have plenty of opportunities in the coming weeks. Look what you caused. Like, now Red Bull is back.
Because it wasn't even just Max. Even Sergio did pretty well in Q3. I'll say he did pretty well.
Yeah. And you're sitting there, and I'm just like, so mind you, like if Max is like doing really good and Sergio is doing really good, like it kind of was forewarning. It made me think, shoot, like the Red Bulls are back. Like, I hope everyone enjoyed the interesting racing we got for 3 or 4 races. Now we're about to go right back into the time that is Max Verstappen.
Yeah. The Empire has returned.
Yes. And, it was pretty straightforward. By the time you got to Q3, Max was just driving really, really well. But, we had some other, as you stated, Sergio Perez kind of making things interesting for a hot second. But there was a little yellow horse there that I wasn't expecting at all.
We talking about Leclerc?
Yes. I was like, what are you doing here? Where have you been all these past few weeks? That was interesting to see.
I mean, I wasn't that shocked by Ferrari being fast. Like, I mean, they've I think in the last couple races they've fallen off a bit, but they still have a fast car. They're still second in the constructors, right? Like, Leclerc still is great at qualifying. I think he just delivered like he was supposed to. In my mind, Ferrari should be up there.
I don't know, like after spending weeks of watching Mercedes and McLaren kind of really take it to Red Bull, I guess my mind was a little shocked. Yeah. It was a little shocked. I was like, Like I was so used to thinking of the red cars later in the race, 5, 6,
You
maybe
gave up on
7,
them so quickly.
8.
Ricardo, for next year, you can't do that because your boy's going to be on the
Oh
team.
no. Next year I'm part of the Scuderia Ferrari.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
exactly.
Like I'm to part of the Fussy. Like, come on. But no, like it definitely caught me off guard. It definitely caught me off guard. But for those who didn't get a chance to see Q3, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
we had Sergio put in like a really good
Mm-hmm.
lap, and it seemed like he would have pole, basically finishing second to Max.
Yep.
But because of the grid penalties, he would be the top space. And then we had immediately, pretty quickly after that, we had Charles just put in like a monster lap and kind of take it from Sergio. Like I feel for Sergio. I can't lie. I think for like I don't know how long it was, for the minute or the 20, 30 seconds it was where he had pole, I feel like maybe the weight of the world got off his shoulders.
Yeah.
So
I
like
mean, we're all watching him going into this race being like, the last race before the break, he's let his team down a lot in the last couple races. Basically his job's on the line. Honestly, I was really hoping for, and this is just me hoping for chaos. I was hoping that like Yuki Tsunoda would have knocked out Checo from qualifying in Q3 or something like that. Like kept him out of the top 10 because he was right there. So what happened in Q2 was Checo actually knocked out Alex Albon by I think like 3/1000ths of a second, and so he snuck into Q3, like barely got in there, and then he put down a really impressive lap on used tires when everyone else was on brand new tires. So honestly, like you have to give him props for what he did in qualifying because he performed. He outperformed, I think, expectations, and he did better than I would have thought he did, and he did so on used tires.
in qualifying.
In qualifying, when he knows his job's on the line, and he performed in qualifying. So he showed that he could be fast for at least a single lap. In qualifying, exactly. But what's funny is like he hadn't done that for the last 4 races before. Like he's just absolutely pooped the bed in qualifying, and then he puts down a pretty badass lap time. In qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, in qualifying, it did feel bad. Like I said, it felt like the weight of the world was off of him. Like imagine like you are whatever, you're Atlas, and you're holding the world. Here comes Zeus, and he says, I got you for a quick second. And just as you're about to like stretch out your hand, like and he smashes it back down on you. And that's what it felt like for Sergio. I was like, darn it. I was like, you know what? At least I honestly felt like if he got P1, he would have finished higher in the race than where he finished, and I think it would have been amazing for him going into the summer break. I think like
to start in first,
to start in first and finish at a realistic number, which I think for him would have been like top.
So
3.
he finished in 7th after starting 2nd. And you think if he started first, he would have...
If he started first, I think he would have either won the race or finished in the top 3, which I think both would have been, of course, much better than him finishing P7.
But he...
Much better. Because the way this race played out, being in the lead for a particular amount of time seemed to help with so many things. And I honestly believe like the car would have been under him. He would have been in a good place. I honestly believe he would have done better. But where he was, and the fact that many think in the race he was basically pitted to finally let his teammate pass. So I do think he would have had a better overall race had he just started in first.
I can see the argument, but at the same time, like he started in 2nd and then immediately gave up position to Lewis Hamilton, who was in 3rd, and then immediately just started dropping.
That's Lewis Hamilton.
It's Lewis, but then
that's Lewis Hamilton.
Then he started just dropping from there. Like you know what I mean? Like he had a bad start, and if he started in pole, Like he probably would have had the same start. And he's in a better track position.
Start.
But I think he would have got caught.
He had a desperate start. Let's just say.
That weight was back on his shoulders. He realized he was just doing qualifying, and now here's the actual race. This is the result. Yeah.
Immediately. So that was qualifying. If I remember correctly, Max is now pushed back. We have Charles in pole, Sergio in second, Lewis Hamilton in third.
Correct. Lewis in third, and then Lando and Oscar to round out the top five.
So I'm sitting there and I'm just like, okay, cool. That's a good 5. And I think we have Russell coming in at 6 or 7?
6 and 7 was Russell and Sainz. With old man Alonso in 8th.
Old man River.
I was about to do the same thing.
So, we get to the race. It's that at spots that race down to the first hairpin. And oh my boy. There is a thing to finally tasting victory and increasing your own confidence and remembering that you are a 7-time world champion.
We're talking about Lewis Hamilton right now.
We're talking about Lewis Hamilton. That move that Sergio tried to pull on him, and Lewis basically was like, no, you shall not pass.
It was like basically, I had in my notes, Lewis shuts down Checo.
Yes.
Basically Sergio tried to box him out off the start, and Lewis just went wheel to wheel with him and did not give up position.
Yes. Tucked in behind Leclerc and was just like, no.
And talk about finessing it, right? Because anyone else, not anyone else, but a lot of other drivers likely would have just ended up into the rear of Leclerc, just right into the Ferrari wing. And he balanced that where he was able to keep that distance, give Leclerc the space he needed while still maintaining his elbows out against Sergio and then taking that position.
The best thing I could compare it to is if you ever watch almost any movie about bullying and now the main character has learned martial arts or he's super confident now and the bully tries to punch him and make him flinch and he doesn't flinch. That's exactly what Sergio tried to do. Sergio goes at the start of this race and you literally see from Lewis's onboard camera, you see out of nowhere and very aggressively. These set of wheels just come that way. And you see a slight flinch from Lewis, but he stays on his line. He doesn't move off or anything. That was the desperation I was talking about. That start just had the stench of desperation in it. Had the stench of, I need to do something now. I need to get myself out there quickly. I need to do it now.
Going up to the race, a lot of the chatter was about, you had other drivers. You literally had Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo talking about that seat. Yuki being like, well, if they don't consider me for that, basically that it was a foregone conclusion that Checo was getting kicked out and that someone was going to take that seat. That's how people were talking about it. Drivers on the grid were talking about it. So he was desperate.
He was desperate. So whether that was the real story, behind the scenes, or maybe it's just chatter, but regardless of what it was, it affected him. Because even if you think it's just chatter, you're not in every single meeting. You don't know what Chris is saying behind the scenes with Helmut Marko. You don't know any of what is going on there. So they may look in your face and smile and say, oh no, your job is safe, but you're not sure what's going on. And like I said, that move stunk of desperation. But my boy, Lewis Hamilton, decided, no. Oh man, that smell, that familiar, victory. Yes. Oh no, I remember that smell quite well. I want it. I want it more. I have a good car in me now. I want it more. And it was beautiful because they had a story going on as well. Mercedes came in that Friday not looking
Right.
good.
Well, they had
They had
new
just
upgrades,
put
right?
Yeah, they had put new upgrades on the car, but it was good. Someone was wise enough to like still keep the old parts. So as soon as they saw things were working in Spa, they're like, okay, we tried. Let's worst thing that could happen. Let's just resort back to the other setup, and we'll like that. We're still very good in
Right.
that setup. So let's just
And
resort
that's
back, and
basically what they did
immediately,
after like FP1, right?
yeah,
They said this isn't
yeah,
working out.
FP1. They were like, this isn't working out. Let's go back. We could try this at another track. FP1, no, okay, and immediately they saw gains. So to see that move from Lewis, like I was so happy because there was a sense that nothing was being forced. Like there was just this sense that okay, like a sense of confidence there. Like we have a good
Yeah.
base. Like we could play around a little bit. If it doesn't work, just go back to the base. And that's exactly what they did. And I think that's what really allowed Lewis to hold off Checo, and then within a few laps. By lap 3 was just like Charles, yeah, come in real quick. Yeah, I know we're gonna be boys next year, but yeah, I'm gonna take this real quick. You just go back there.
What do you think is going through Lewis Hamilton's
Okay.
mind as he's reeling in the Ferrari in his Mercedes, being like, "Oh, this car's faster now."
2026.
Yeah,
2026.
let's see what the 2026 car looks like.
2026. 2026. I think that's what's going through his mind. I don't think he's, to me, 2025, I don't think Lewis Hamilton, if he's in championship contention, I think he'll be happy. But I don't think he's looking at it as that first year I'm going to be in championship contention. I think he's looking at it in terms of my first year, like in my whole career, I'm going to be on a new team. I want to acclimate myself with everyone. I want to acclimate myself with the team. I want to see how things are structured on the inside. I want to be there with the car, see what suggestions I can make, see how we could improve it. I think that's his goal. So don't get me wrong. He's still a hungry lion, and like if opportunity brings it and that car looks good, he's going to be happy and he's going to try to get wins. And if the car is poor, he's not going to be happy. I don't think the car is going to be poor. I think the car is going to be, maybe it's not going to be as good as the top 2 teams, but it'll still be a good car.
Yeah, I think so. And
to where
I think it's still a good car.
Yeah,
right now it's a good car.
Yeah.
And so who knows what they do next year.
Exactly. So for me, I don't really see, and they continue to bring in more talent. Like there's no limit to what I think they can accomplish, especially like over the winter break and upgrades to the car. And there is something which I think, Mercedes has started to realize. There is something to listening to a 7-time world champion and his experience and bringing that to the table. So I think they'll be. I think he'll be all right.
But for now,
but I think for now, for now, he's just happy. I honestly, someone said it like Lewis Hamilton is in his IDGAF phase of his career. Like I've done a lot. I've experienced a lot, and I'm here just for the pure excitement and thrill of racing, and like the competition of it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll be sad if I lose, and we kind of saw that. But like, there's it. I don't think it's end all be all like it probably was in the earlier parts of his career. And the funny thing is, he's actually become beloved, even by the haters. Like, and Lewis Hamilton throughout his career has had a lot of haters. And I honestly think they all just were waiting for him to fail. And now that he's on this second act, they're just like, oh, okay, like we like you, man. Like you like you're old faithful. We gonna miss you when you're gone, but man, we like you.
We see
like
that
you.
in I don't know. I see that like basketball is like the other sport that I watch a lot, and you kind of see that like even like LeBron James now, where 20 years in, people are like there's still a lot of chatter around him, but people are like, yeah, we get it. Like, you're really good. Like you've won a lot of games.
You're
like,
really good.
Kobe,
Like,
people hated on Kobe for years. And then by the time he was wrapping up, he had his farewell tour was just nothing but love and respect from basically every other team.
Yeah. I think people, there was hatred for Kobe, but I think a lot of that was because people felt like he was trying to be too Michael Jordan-esque. But I think what people didn't realize was to be that good in the NBA, you kind of have to fly towards Jordan-esque.
Right.
Yeah. like if anyone's going to be super successful as Jordan was, I'm not going to be surprised if they're shooting at 4:00 in the morning. Mm-hmm. I think another thing that really helped him was the Redeem Team.
Yeah.
And the special and everything that kind of had to go with that. I think people realized that he had just this hunger to win and be better. And it never really ended. He didn't talk about trying to be better. He actually his main focus was being better. Being in the gym early.
You even see it with Michael Schumacher, right? He's now, I think, just it feels like he's universally beloved, right? And obviously he's going through some crazy medical stuff. But when he was racing and winning, there was a lot of hate towards him because you want to talk about elbows out. Him. That guy was if he's not first, he's last, mentality, the Ricky Bobby, he's going for it regardless. And he put people into walls and things, or people alleged that he put them into walls, and he was not loved for all that, for all those reasons.
Yeah. But I think as a career progresses, people, when Lewis Hamilton is no longer in Formula One, people are going to feel it.
Absolutely.
People are going to feel it every single day. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, we had this amazing driver. And some people will be like, I never showed him the respect that he deserved because he is just that good. And you know what? We could continue, of course, to wax poetic about him, but really, he is that dude.
He's that dude. And honestly, this race, Spa, was a perfect example of how much of a dude he is. Because from start to finish, this was a masterclass in Lewis Hamilton driving. Maybe he didn't have the tire management that Russell had, but you know what? That's him following team orders in listening to his mechanics and his engineers. And he went and took this race as much as he could. And it was cool to watch. And how this race played out there's no spoilers now, right? This is a recap with Russell finishing first and them kind of battling it out the end. And then obviously Russell getting DQ'd. It was fun to watch Lewis go for it and then have his teammate defend.
It was a truly poetic ending. Yeah. Let's just say that. I think, no, I can't just say that. I have a lot to say about this. But I'll say it with you. I mean, because we were talking about the start, Checo being very aggressive, Norris just I think he fell, 2 or 3 positions out the gate?
On turn 1, he understeered, went wide, and then I think he dropped down from, what was he in? I think 4th. He started in 4th, and he dropped down to 7th on turn 1. And he kind of never recovered from there.
The bad starts continue to plague him. I honestly think he's in his own head too much right now.
Norris?
I think
he's just an eager beaver. I think he knows he has a fast car. He knows he can win, and he's going too hard.
He's an eager beaver who has a teammate that is looking pretty good,
looking like the Terminator in a lot of ways.
Bruh. It was but 2-3 weeks ago I was talking about how Lando and that boy, only being there a year and a half. Oh, this did not help.
I was definitely thinking about that watching this race because there was a lot of disrespect for Oscar, I think, on the Lost podcast.
Bro, there was disrespect in terms of how we felt Lando should be
Agreed.
treated.
Agreed.
I have no problem admitting to that because I continue to think like Lando should be that dude on the team. But that man, Mr. Piastri, you know, what is it, second of his name, whatever the Game Throw-esque title would be, that boy can drive. That and there's an ignorance of youth, but at the same time, he's picking up things pretty good. Pretty fast.
He ended up finishing. He would have been third if Russell wasn't DQ'd, but he ended up finishing second. And yeah, the back half of this race was people were watching Russell and Lewis, but you could on the mic there was like a radio message from Lewis being like, "How far away is he? Like, how close is this going to be?" And I think people initially thought, "Oh, that's him talking about how far is he going to be from Russell." But it was really him talking about Oscar Piastri, who was putting down half-second faster lap times than him for multiple laps in a row. And just like when I say the Terminator reference, like he was the T1000. And if you hear this guy on the radio too, he is so monotone. He like there's no emotion. He's ice cold. And yeah, so it's that scene in Terminator 2 with the T1000 just like running behind him, just ice cold face. That was just Oscar Piastri this race.
Some people think of the T1000. I think of like the original Terminator.
Arnold,
where he's talking to Sarah Connor, and he's like, he will not eat, he does not sleep, he does not drink. He will he's just here to go after you. Like there is no pause. There's his only goal, his only mission is to destroy you. And yeah, Piastri might be like with that type of attitude, like. Though he has more personality than Kimi, like Iceman Kimi.
Oh my god,
he has more personality. I think he has more personality than Kimi, but like I do like the very quiet like approach. But no, he looked great this race. Great this race. And if a few weeks ago I was just really yelling about how, you know, that there should be a hierarchy on the team. Man, Lando, you're not helping me, bro. you're. I was hoping to see like a good response from you this race, and that's not what I got. Like you were stuck behind Max Verstappen for quite some time.
Was another fun subplot to this race because they were in the kind of back half of the top 10, but they were racing. You had Max and Norris racing, and like honestly, with the championship in top of mind, like. Those points still mattered between the two of them. So that was pretty awesome to watch them race as well.
Yeah. Like all of a sudden, didn't Oscar like jump from 5 to 4 on the Drivers' Championship?
Oh, I don't know I can look that up. Yeah.
I think he jumped from 5th to 4th place after this race over Lando. Yeah, pull it up real quick.
Yeah, he's in 4th now.
Yeah. How many points behind Lando?
So Lando's got 199. He's got 167.
Yeah, Lando. You see, it's almost like they listened to every point I made in the previous episode, and he just said, "Okay, take that off, take that off, take that off." He's no longer that far behind where if he's leading, it's a fait accompli that they're going to tell him, let Lando pass.
Right.
If two more races like this where he finishes ahead of Lando, it's no longer, Lando gets priority just because he's close. It suddenly becomes, Asker's, in a better position, is driving better. Now that becomes the argument.
I mean, they describe it as having two number ones. So, the team hasn't put Lando forward yet, even though I think that's kind of what it's implied. It's not explicit, but it's still out there. But
now I'm beginning to see why. I mean, I don't know. Lando under pressure is just, I don't know, man.
If people have been listening, like, I don't know how long Oscar Piastri's been racing because I always like overestimate it. Like I'm like, oh, this guy's been in the league 5 years, but it's been like a year and a half. Because of the way he drives and the way he carries himself, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy feels like a vet. Like he's been here, he's done that. But no, he's still very new to racing.
He's carrying himself better in many ways than someone like Lando, who's been doing this for quite some time. Which, like, I don't know, if I'm anyone in Lando's camp, I'm nervous. I'm not nervous that he's going to lose his seat. I'm more nervous of, like, if he becomes just that much better than you, guess what? There won't be two number ones on this team. There's going to be a number one, and it won't be you.
You end up with a Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg situation where you have two really fast drivers in a really fast car. Like, McLaren's got to be really happy about that. And yeah, who knows? Maybe one of them turns out to be very, very good, and the other one is also really, really good. Maybe not 7-time champion good, but like can still sneak up and win a driver's championship one year, which Nico Rosberg did. Like, it could be like that.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so Oscar had a good race. He can drive. He had pace. And in typical, I think, McLaren fashion for this season, if he had just a couple more laps, if there were just a couple more laps in Spa, he might have won the whole thing. And how many times have we actually talked about that with a McLaren driver this year? If they just had 2 more laps, So I think their team, man, they've clearly now have the fastest car, but it's a matter of, I think in this little break, how do they match their race day strategy to the car and the driver so they actually can put it all together. We'll see though.
Yep.
But
yep. I mean,
that's McLaren. Do we want to talk about Mercedes yet, or do you want to talk about Red Bulls? Or
No. I'm saving Mercedes till then. Let's talk about
Let's talk about Red Bulls.
Let's talk about the Bulls. As we stated, Sergio, he got P2. Would have been really happy if he got P1, but he got P2. And man, did things not work out for him?
No.
Max is starting. So Sergio is P2. Right. Max is starting P11.
Yes, P11.
Max is starting P11. Race starts. Sergio tries to pull this bombastic side-eye move on Lewis Hamilton. Doesn't happen. And then we just fall into this lull with Sergio, slowly falling back and back and back and back, while Max Verstappen is slowly moving forward and forward.
Yeah, I mean, by lap 2, Max was, I think, in 8th. Like, he had picked up 3 spaces.
Yep. So it got to a point where Max was pretty much... George Russell had just gone in for a stop, and he was behind Checo Perez, and Max was coming up behind them. So, George is like, okay, I need to pass Checo as soon as possible to make the most of this pit.
Yeah.
He does that.
Like, very easily.
Very easily. Here comes Max behind Checo. And it's almost like Checo had like a brain freeze. Like, his body couldn't quite compute what to do. Like, how do I let Max pass? Do I let Max pass and lose another position like I've been doing all this time? Or do I kind of try to be like, oh yeah, I got good pace and continue to try to maybe bring Max a little bit further with his DRS? Well, he never had a chance to answer that question because the team just decided, no, I don't know what you're doing. Come in here. We're going to pit you for no apparent reason, because really we shouldn't be pitting you around this time, so we can let Max do what Max needs to do. In that moment, I feel like the team lost as much respect as they could have lost for Sergio Perez as possible.
In that moment, I feel like they were just like, no, just get out of the way.
I think that was. I thought I take it back. I didn't think. I thought that was the last straw. I thought that was the team, eventually making the decision over the summer break, early in the summer break, that you know what, whether we put Yuki or Daniel in this car, we can't get worse than this. We can't. We know what the car can do. Like, both Daniel and Yuki are fast drivers. We see what they've done in the RB, especially recently. There's even if we don't want them to stay in that position, like going on into 2025, what does it hurt us to just move them up and at least try them out for like half the year? If they're really successful, guess what? We have two really successful car drivers.
Good logic. I completely follow that. Totally.
And if they're not successful, at the very worst, is it worse than having Checo Perez right now?
No, not at all. He's not doing anything.
Not at all.
He's getting some points, I guess, but like, no, he's for that car.
No.
And where he's finishing on the grid or in the race, like, it's wild.
He's not doing that car justice. Not doing that car justice. So that was my thought after this race. But as we will discuss later on, is basically my answer. And we'll talk a little bit more.
But the essential thing is, like, in a race where his entire season feels like it's on the line, where everybody going into the race says it's on the line, and we have other drivers talking about that seat and who deserves it. He qualifies P2, and we go, okay, this is going to be great. Like, he's delivering, and then he goes from P2 to P7.
Yep.
And that's just not acceptable in my eyes. I wouldn't think it would be acceptable, but he still has a seat right now.
Yep.
But
Yep. And as I said, we'll definitely discuss that later.
Especially, we'll discuss it later. But when we're starting to get to the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull's got to really be thinking about it, because there's money on the line there. It's a lot more than just a trophy. And
like, it's great to have the Drivers' Championship, but it's almost like it's almost like it loses some luster, after, like, because we've kind of gotten to a point where it's just assumed that you get the drivers, you're going to get the constructors. It's just assumed. But once you get to a point where you are basically, you have the drivers and you're struggling to keep the constructors and chance for you to lose it, like, it really says something about your team.
It says something about your team when you have a driver as dominant as Max Verstappen is, and who's won as many races as he has this season, and basically, statistically has the Drivers' Championship locked up, barring some crazy end of the year, and they're still in a fight for the constructors because of how bad Checo's been.
Yep. But as I said, we'll talk about that later. But
all right. Let's
talk
about Mercedes, Ricardo. For everyone listening, he's pointing at his hat, which is a Mercedes hat.
Yeah. Okay. I can't speak to how Lewis Hamilton felt in that car in 2021 when the radio message came across that and I'm not going to use the word assume, because assume makes it seem like there was a if and or maybe like to it, where Lewis Hamilton knows the regulations and knows what should be done in that moment, only to see the complete opposite be done. And it felt like the whole world is conspiring against him to not get what he feels he deserves.
We're talking about the last lap of 2021, where a bunch of cars got in front of, Max got in front of a bunch of cars. Yeah.
Cars, yep. And then the space that should have been there between him and Max, as a buffer, as by the rules that were in place at the time of that race, just disappeared. Making a decision that the team had made null and void. Because if you tell me, I don't even want to fall into it. I think a billion conversations have been.
This is a conversation
I don't want to go there.
Having
I don't want to go there
for lifetimes.
For a lifetime. But forget that. I can't speak to how Lewis Hamilton felt in that moment. And the stakes were much higher. No one is arguing that. We're talking about a world championship, drivers' championship on the line. Stakes were much higher in that instance. I can't even begin to imagine how he felt in that car. Sadly, though, this race felt very similar, except the person on the other side was not Michael Massey. The person on the other side was his own team.
Please keep going.
And this is there's nothing worse in life as a human being. And people are going to say that's just tough luck. It is what it is. But there's no worse feeling in life than when you feel like you've done everything right and not get what you feel you deserve. Yeah. Everything right. Not one pin, not one edge out of line. Everything right. Like literally, by the book, you've done your complete. It's like doing your homework, getting every question right, only for the teacher to come back and be like, "Oh no, I just came up and decided, it's not really A+, it's actually A."
So you're talking about at the end of the race, like in the lap 40s, the radio message from the team to Lewis.
I'm talking about multiple things. First, George Russell has every right to, on the fly, decide, okay, let's try a different strategy. What's the worst going to happen? That's cool. That's George Russell's right.
It was a really gutsy decision. Really loved it. Yeah.
Really gutsy is George Russell's right. Lewis Hamilton has a right to decide, okay, if that's what he's doing, then I'm going to do this. And he deserves that right. What I felt happened is he never really got that right in this instance. And by the time he got that right, he got it too late. And I'm saying this in terms of he didn't get an opportunity to respond to that decision that Russell made. That's one thing that I felt
that's because so Russell pitted first, and most people would call this race a 2-stop race, right? Some even would call it a 3-stop race. And then Russell pitted first. Hamilton pitted like a lap later for the first pit, and then everyone's starting to go like lap 25, 26. Start thinking about their second pit. Lewis pits on lap 26, right?
After telling his team the tires look good. The tires look good.
And they still tell him to come in.
The tires look good. And they still told him to pit. After saying that, still told them to pit. By now, they've already got some information as to what Russell has done.
Because Russell had been out on those tires for longer, too.
For longer. So they already have some information like, okay, yeah. You know what? If you want to stay a couple laps longer, Lewis, by all means. We're seeing good stuff on Russell. Yeah, it seems like it's not car specific. It seems like just overall it's good. Yeah. Do you? But he didn't get that. He basically, team tells him to pit. He pits. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about At what point do you tell the man who has done everything right to win this race the information he knows he needs to make sure he wins this race? So when he's asking you, like, where is my teammate? What's the distance? And not just the guy behind him in terms of Oscar Piastri, but also asking about his teammate. Because there were some discussions where he was asking about Oscar, but there was also where he was clearly asking, what's going on up there? And there was definitely a feeling that the team, now realizing, oops, yeah, this is going to be a little close here, decides that, okay, yeah, maybe we don't know what we're going to do real quick. And there was just a sense that for Lewis, who won, I think he deserved to win this race.
And he ultimately did.
And he ultimately did. But like, crazy decisions be damned.
What crazy decisions?
In my mind, if
like the Russell decision, or
Russell decision, crazy decisions be damned. In my mind, Russell, you know what? At the most, you're getting second place. At the most, your crazy decision be damned. At the most, you're getting second place. The guy that's been running all over this place, working hard to get in first position or first position equivalent, is winning this race. I don't care if you whine about it. I don't care if you're annoyed about it. But how would you feel, George Russell, if you were in Lewis Hamilton's shoes and you did everything right to be in a position to win the race? And instead of it being car trouble, instead of it being the other person catching up, because the only reason Oscar Piastri ended up catching up so quickly was because your teammate had to duel it out with you and lose time. So in my mind, like, if I'm Mercedes, like, the second George makes that crazy tomfoolery, crazy decision, the message to him is like, great, let's see where we can go with this. But please know, Lewis is on like a perfect strategy. He is, as of right now, barring something crazy happening, he's in line to winning this race.
He did everything to win the race. He had, I'd say, like a nearly perfect race from a strategy standpoint.
Yeah. So we're not going to take your decision not to do something and equate that higher than the work that Lewis Hamilton has done to get to where he is this whole race. We're not going to do that. Like, at most, you were thought to, like, okay, if you pit, you're going to get 5. Guess what? Now you're going to have 2. We're going to have a 1-2. But here's how we're going to play it. Lewis is charging your way. When he gets there, he's going to be under your DRS for a little while longer, so we could just manage that gap between the two of you and
Oscar.
And Oscar. But once the moment is right, like, and as late as possible, Lewis is going to pass you. You're going to tuck it under his DRS, and we're going to ride this to home.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
That's what we're going to do.
Honestly, that's exactly what I thought Mercedes was going to do.
Yep. And that's what we're going to do. Like, that's basically the plan. Like, just know that. And guess what? We've done some calculations and we've realized that, you know what, you may be a little skinny come the end of the race. Take this opportunity when you're behind Lewis to kind of, run the car wide a little bit. Grab some of those marbles, because guess what? You're not going to have an opportunity to do that come the end of the race. Because we realized clearly when you saw Toto's face, we realized that you may be a little skinny. Just a little skinny come the end of this race. And even though we're going to try to pull some crazy stuff and not drain the fluid in the car and hope that they don't realize that we didn't drain the fluid in the car to try to stay in weight, we're going to let you, this is how we're going to do it. And we're going to cross our fingers that this is going to work out, but at least we won't come off looking like cheats.
And they didn't do that, right? And so I think it was like lap 41. Mercedes, the team engineers, get on the radio and go, give each other space, like be respectful of each other, but basically go for it. You guys can race. Russell does not have to give up position.
At that point in time, I hope there's a button in the car that allows you to not be on radio. If I'm Lewis Hamilton, I'm hitting that button. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That is me as Lewis Hamilton if I hear that. Because that you can't do that to the person on your team who had that experience before. You can't do that.
It's interesting that you bring up like Abu Dhabi. I didn't look at it in that context.
You can't do that. Lewis Hamilton, and it's probably one of the most defining things about him, is the type of person who I know in his mind is like, as long as I do what is right, like I deserve to get what I deserve. Like I keep my head down. I'm not letting these people get to me. Like I'm racing really well. I'm giving you all the answers that you guys want to hear. Especially in this point in his career. Like I sat there through the whole craziness of 2021 and you know what, I still shook hands. I did what I felt was right. Even when maybe some of you thought like I had every right to act up and go crazy.
To be
and do
fair,
whatever.
Lewis Hamilton,
like,
especially when we're talking about tire strategy and pitting, like he makes it known, or he has historically, that I disagree with you guys. I don't think this is a good strategy, but he still does it. He will still follow the team strategy.
He still does it. He still follows the team strategy.
I think this is a bad idea, or they put him on the wrong tires, and he'll tell them. He'll rip into them about it, but he still follows the team strategy.
Yeah, but still follows the team strategy. You can't do that to someone like him. Like, you can't do that. You just can't. You can't. Like, it's like I'm a dad. And, you know, I have this wonderful boy that I'm raising. And every day I'm teaching him lessons on life and what he should do. And I can't sit there and teach him these lessons and then renege on what I'm actually telling him. Like, I can't tell him you should do all these things right, and this is what you're gonna get from dad, from mom, from your aunt, your uncle. Like, if I tell him that needs to be, at least here in this household, that word needs to be bond. Outside of the world, that's a completely different story. Outside, people can promise and lie and everything. But you need to know that when you're here, my word is bond. If I tell you this is this. I equate that to a team. If I'm the team and I tell you this, and we've had discussions this, and we've done this, my word needs to be my bond. And in this instance, their word needed to be their strategy the night before had nothing in it that said that George Russell is going to run long. Nothing in it. Nothing in it. Not only that, but Lewis ends up qualifying higher than George Russell. So you know the strategy was never that. Whatever the strategy was, the priority was always going to be Lewis Hamilton. Always. He's ahead of George in terms of qualifying. Yes, you could put them on different strategies, tire-wise, whatever. But the strategy overall is always going to be, you know what, Lewis, you're like four positions ahead? Lewis started third, and George started what?
George started sixth, so 3 and 6. Oh, well,
3 and 6.
Actually,
3 and 6. So whatever the strategy is, you're as a team, you're thinking, okay, our best opportunity for W is going to be Lewis. Like, So we're going to put you on different strategies just in case some craziness happens. It is what it is. But Lewis, George, you can't then, in the middle of the race, without Lewis doing anything bad to not deserve to win, like not driving good, something wrong with the car, without him doing everything, with him doing everything right, then say, okay, yes, we're just gonna George just pulled some ish out of his ish, and we're just gonna let him win this race. Like we're just gonna set this up. So we're just not even set this up. George, it is what it is. George won the race. Oh well, I'm sorry, Lewis. George won the race. Like he pulled something out of a hat.
You're saying they can't.
You can't do that. I'm saying they can't do that. I loved
every second of that.
I hated it.
I fully disagree with you.
I hated it.
It was amazing.
I hated it. Here's the thing. I hated it for the simple fact that you're sitting there and you're telling Lewis Hamilton that you're free to race, just leave room. No matter where in the world it is, Lewis Hamilton knows that's what you're saying is not what you're saying. What you're saying is not what you're saying. If that's Lando Norris in front of me, completely different talk. That's my teammate in front of me. If I F up or I push him too much because I want this position and something happens with it, who is everybody going to hate? Who is everybody going to come after? Are they going to come after the team? Or are they going to come after me? Who? Let's be honest.
With Lewis Hamilton?
Let's be honest. They're all going to come after me. They're all going to come after me. I caused that crash. It was a 1-2. Russell was in front. Yeah. Why was Hamilton pushing him so much? So don't say that BS, just leave space. Because it's not. That's not really the case. You know there's no real racing
there. There was some pretty good racing, though.
There's no, but it's not. There was good racing, but it's not what. That's probably 85% of what Lewis could have done to anybody else. Because he knows he can't do that to Russell. He knows he can't. It's a lose-lose. He pushes him too much. Something happens to Russell. They collide. He loses.
They both lose. Yeah.
He loses. They both lose. They're not racing for a potential. They're not racing for position. They're racing for the win and a 1-2. Completely different argument. That I was so annoyed when I heard that message from Mercedes because I'm like BS. That's bull. That's bull. That's not a real message. You're not really allowing them to fight. Just leave space. You know what leave space means? That's your teammates. Don't crash into him. So don't really push the issue. That's what leave space means. So you don't say that to anybody else.
You know what that
You're not going to tell Lewis. You're not going to tell Lewis.
That said to me, you're going to Ferrari next year. You've done a lot of work for us and you're having a great race, but we now have an alliance with George Russell, who is going to be on our team next year. He has a chance to win a race, pulling something very gutsy and holding on to tires from, I think it was lap 11. And we're not going to give it to you because Russell is now the team priority going forward.
And what did Karma say?
Karma said 798 kilograms.
Yes. Karma said, no, don't fuck with my heart. That's what Karma said.
So I think I understand your points, absolutely. And Lewis Hamilton, I think if anyone's deserving of a win, it's him. But man, can I just say so Lewis pits on 26, and literally I think on that lap is when George Russell goes, I think I can stay. Let's start thinking about a one pit strategy here. So obviously that's already out the door for Lewis, it sucks for him because he was the one calling out maybe we could do this. Or maybe we can at least stay out on these tires longer. And then to have George Russell, take all of the context out of it, take, as much as you can, for him to save those tires and actually maintain the lead and finish that race from where I guarantee you before that race started, they did not have him on the podium. And for him to come away with the quote unquote win, even though he got disqualified after the fact, man, that was gutsy as hell. That was pretty amazing for him to do that. It was a hell of a drive. And yeah, he was 1.5 kg underweight. And I get your points about Lewis, but oh man, what a race for George Russell. I was happy for him. And I'm not a known George Russell fan, although I think I'm coming around.
Okay. I know what I'm about to say is going to make me come off as probably like a huge George Russell hater.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. I'm still going to say it. I think that says more about the tires than it does about George Russell.
Well, okay. So Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll also did a one-stop race.
Is it?
And they didn't. One of them finished in the points. I don't know.
Fernando, I think, finished in the points.
Yeah, he got a.
Yeah. So I.
Well, did he? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry, keep going.
I think it said more about the tires than it did about Russell. I think had more teams known that those tires had that much life in them, I think most of the teams would have done a one-stopper. And probably come into pit a little bit later than what they normally pitted.
Mm-hmm.
I think
he was one of the first people to pit, which is crazy.
I think
so he did a one-stop off an early pit.
I think where he does get the benefit is him really. I don't really think he really forced the issue because I heard the radio messages. It was him basically saying the tires look good, and from what I've read and the different factors. It seems as if you had like a lot of air and you weren't really in dirty air, you had a lot of room in front of you, those tires had a much longer life than if you were in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and he was saying that, like being in the front with the clean air.
Because Oscar, who was in the front for a little while, I believe, was saying the same thing. And they looked at his tires and they said, yeah, you're right. Like, these look clean. These look pretty good. You could have gone a lot further in them. So I honestly felt, and I'm not saying this to say George Russell doesn't have any skill. I still believe that one lap pace, George probably has like a little bit of an edge over Lewis Hamilton. I'm just saying, for all the talk about how he did this and how he really kept those tires alive, I think it says more about the tires and their longevity because it's not like he was the only person that said these tires have life to them. A lot of people said these tires have life. He just benefited from the fact that his team said, okay, run with it. While other teams were just like, we're not going to take that risk.
Yeah.
So,
but I think there's something to that too, right? Because that was a gutsy move. That was, hey, this is going to be risky. We're going to go for it. Yeah. And there's a reason why not everyone else did that, because there is a risk tolerance that just wasn't there. Yeah. And so I think to take that risk and for it to pay off, that's pretty awesome.
I think there's also a risk.
Really pay off.
I think there's also a risk because he knew that the person who'd end up being behind him is not Oscar or competition. It would be his own teammate. Mm-hmm. There's something to that. Like, it's not like he's staying there on long tires and, oh, guess who's coming in quick and fast? It's Oscar Piastri. It's his own teammate. There's a safety blanket there. Like,
there is.
Like, even if like worst push comes to shove, because I bet you if he had somebody else other than his teammate coming fast behind him, I don't know if they'd ever have made that decision. They'd be like, okay, we'll take fifth. We're good. Mm-hmm. We're good. Because, like, if that man passes you and then all of a sudden everybody else passes you and now what could have been fifth turns into 6th, 7th, or maybe 8th, yeah, that doesn't look like a great move. But there's something, that strategy wouldn't have been a viable strategy without how Hamilton was driving. Hamilton was driving where everything lined up for him to be the winner of that race.
I agree.
The security of that allows George Russell to then say, I'm going to push and go for first place. Because
I mean, the thing is, if George doesn't do that, this race, regardless of if that comfort blanket of Lewis in kind of behind you, fifth or seventh or whatever, he wasn't going to be on the podium.
No, he wasn't.
So I don't know if that comfort blanket, like, or that comfort of Lewis there really changes his strategy. He was like, I'm either going for broke or I'm not. I'm going for it all, or I'm going for nothing right now.
I don't know. I feel like it does. There's, and it's the safety blanket more in terms of it gives you time. Like, time, go on those tires with the rest of the field behind you. Time is your worst enemy. You're praying that this race could be finally over with. So whether it's your teammate coming in fast behind you, and you guys are dishing it out like for a little while, that still eats into time. That's a lap, 2, 3 before someone who maybe.
I mean, at a certain point, Lewis was like, I think, over half a second faster than him per lap.
Yeah,
and so he was reeling him in.
Yeah,
and Oscar was reeling both of them in.
But here's the crazy thing: he was still hitting personal best times, which is crazy. Which really goes to show you the life that those tires had. His last lap was his personal best lap of the race.
That's so crazy. Yeah,
it just goes to show you the longevity. I know, like, who's the tire manufacturer for the race? Pirelli. I know Pirelli's sitting there like, damn. Yeah, we're gonna have to change this up for next year, because I know they probably want a 2-stop race, because then strategy factors in and it's not like a sleep fest. But if you turn it into a 1-lap race, like, in many ways, the FIA is like, damn, you guys did your job too well. Like, we don't want a 1-stop race. We want a 2-stop race. And the good thing is only a handful of people realize just how good those tires were. Because imagine if everybody walking into that race realized we could do a 1-stop, it would have been one of the most boring races we've ever watched. Because like clockwork, everybody would have came in after that first pit stop. It's done. It's done.
You're saying it would have been like a Monaco situation.
Yeah. So there's like I said, there are a lot of factors that played into this race. And for me, it's just like I actually see exactly what you're saying. And I was wondering when that would have come into play. But the funny thing is, now that you say it, I do think that came into play. But it's hilarious that came into play and it still bit them in the behind. Like, I feel like every time they've gone out of their way to not put some respect on that man's name, it's backfired in their face. Like, it's just like, I know in their heart of hearts, they were like, Lewis, you have 8 wins at Silverstone. We want Russell to get this one. If the decision was down to the line, they much would have rather Russell got to the Silverstone win than Lewis. But what played into that? Russell's car. Can't do anything about it. Russell.
And can you imagine, like, if they let Lewis by, because he did have, I'd say, like, a very good race strategy, they avoid all of this kind of rigmarole that happens now that Russell has this amazing podium finish and, like, he's diving into the team and everybody's celebrating, and then he gets disqualified.
Yeah.
And they give it to Lewis. They get to avoid all, like, yes, he gets DQ'd and that's going to be a thing, but they get to save face, which would have been very, very nice for that team.
But the funniest part to all of this is, like, they knew really quickly, really fast that
they messed up.
They knew really fast. The one, they knew really fast. 2, you could clearly tell Lewis was not happy.
Yeah.
It was as clear as day in his answers, his demeanor. He still went over there, gave, Russell a quick pat on the back, good job. But, like, from the moment they put a mic in front of him, it's like he could not hold back
He did like you're saying, he did everything he
did
needed
everything
to win.
And he could not hold it back. He's like, yeah, you trust in the strategist, you trust that your team will. Like every time someone put a mic in front of him, you could hear in his voice, hearing what he was saying, that he was not happy that this happened. I wish, oh my God, I'd pay. If I had $1 million to pay, I would have paid $1 million to be in the room with Lewis when the disqualification comes in. Because it's like righteous vindication. It's just like, oh, like whether you say it out loud or whether you just say it in your mind. In your mind, you're just like, There's something in you that's just like, like, because in many ways you're like, I didn't have to be mean or say anything or kind of like I said a few things, but people could just chalk it up to, oh yeah, right after the race, he was annoyed that he didn't win. Cool. But to actually see instantly like a type of vindication, just like, okay, cool. Thank you. Like, here's the funny thing is, Mercedes showed them giving away Hamilton's second place win, like going over to. They had like a little video where they show like walking from the Mercedes. What was it? The Mercedes driveway. And walking over to McLaren and handing off the second place trophy to Oscar, and a guy at McLaren that's like, oh, thank you. But they did not show.
I don't know. That's Russell, a different scene.
That's a different scene. I know someone would probably have to like just yank it out of his head and be like, Lewis, before you go, here you go.
Yeah.
It's just like, stop. If what you're saying is true, I say to Mercedes, just let it be. Let it be. Let them race. Don't give anyone else favoritism. The chips will fall where they lay.
And you don't think that's what they were trying to do at the end of this race?
The chips fall where? No, I don't think that's what I think they knew that Lewis Hamilton would not have pushed that issue as much as possible on the track. He may push it after the fact. He may talk about it after the fact. But they know Lewis Hamilton now, I'm saying now, not Lewis Hamilton of old. Lewis Hamilton now, as the elder statesman, like the much beloved guy, like he's not going to push that issue on the track as hard. He's going to race and try to see if he can pass him. But not only that, but it got to a certain point where, like, once he got within like half a second to like 3/4 of a second, his car just wasn't as effective. Like it whether it was the dirty air or whatever it was, he just could not get past him. So I think there are a lot of factors that play, and you got to think about that. That wasn't the only situation in all of the race where that was happening. So Mercedes had an inkling that just because you got behind a guy doesn't mean you were going to pass him. A la Lando Norris behind Max Verstappen for most of the rest of the race.
Yeah,
it wasn't guaranteed. Some people would argue that Lando's car probably had more pace than Max. Shoot, we had Max behind Checo for a while and he couldn't pass him. Clearly, just getting behind someone until his team said, Checo, get out of the way. Clearly, like when you were within a certain amount of time before behind another car, it wasn't guaranteed that you would pass them, especially later on in the race. Maybe early on, better opportunities, better chances, but like later on in the race, almost every instance, you barely saw cars just passing each other quickly. So I think when you factor all those things in, I think at the end of the day, what you say is right. I think Mercedes was just like, we're happy with a 1-2. We're just a little bit even happier that the 1-2 is our golden boy, number one.
Our new golden boy,
number one, and our other guy, number two. But like, what I find, what really brings all of this together is the moment the decision was made to keep Russell out, they lost the race. The moment that decision was made, they lost the race.
You're saying because of the weight issue?
Because of the weight issue and all the factors that played into the car ending up being underweight. That decision changes everything. That changes in that greedy decision. Like, you basically lost yourself the 1-2, which I find hilarious. Like, well, you don't. So
I saw a couple things about the weight, right? Like,
yeah,
I've seen. I think they just got their weight calculations wrong. Like, I've seen a few. I think people say even if he had new tires or the amount of rubber he lost on the tires does not equal 1.5 kilograms. They just got their ballast weight wrong, because like you look at Aston Martin, they did the same thing and they all came in at the correct weight. They got their calculations right before the race. So I don't think it helped, right? Like, being on old rubber for 35 laps definitely doesn't help. But I guess the whole point is actually that race was done from the beginning for George Russell anyway.
Spa 2024. Spa 2024 F1. I'm trying to find out what cars were actually checked, because they don't check all the cars.
Yeah, the weigh-ins after the fact.
Yep.
Well, you gotta love when they weigh him in and they have just enough fuel to hit exactly the minimum weight.
Not like that many people are talking.
They knew that was the most, guys.
Not that many people. Not that many people talked about that. The fact that Mercedes purposefully left the fuel in the car, hoping that it wouldn't have been taken off to see what the weight of the car was without fuel. Mercedes left exactly what they needed in the car.
They were way too exact.
Way too exact.
799 kilograms. Like, you guys had just enough fuel in there when you're not supposed to have any fuel at all.
There's two things.
The exact minimum.
There's two things. I don't even think they hit the exact minimum. I don't know if they have weights there to be able to do the calculations. I think they just took off whatever they felt was like, okay, let's take a let's. I just think they were like, you know what? This is going to be close. We're not going to touch a thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it just so happens that ended up being the number. Because the other thing is, they took fuel off and there was still fuel left. There was more fuel left for them to take off, which just is crazy. But yeah, they're like I said, in the moment, great idea, but like it's crazy to think the moment that decision was made, they lost that race. Because I know you're saying that it's not just the tires, but I think there are a lot of factors that there's the assumption, there's the tires, there's how those tires ran in open air. It's really I would think it's really hard for a strategist to factor in all those new points of data on a decision like that, because so much plays into before you probably were factoring in with traffic, with dirty air. He's going to be in between cars. He's going to be doing this. He'll probably be in front for maybe 5 seconds for like a short period of time before he's back in the middle of the pack. You're factoring all those things now. So yes, you can stand in front of me and be like, oh no, it's not the tires, but are you really sure it's not the tires? Because there's you just introduced.
I'm not sure.
No, but I'm saying them.
Yeah.
Because you just introduced 20, 30 more points of data, and I'm just pulling that number off the top of my head, but I'm guessing it's quite a bit more points of data by making that decision, by going off schedule like that. But the funny thing is, you introduced all those points of data, and it seemed by the time you were done with the calculations, you realized, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because the looks on everybody's face like other than George Russell at the end of that race, let everyone know you knew ish hit the fan. You knew you were going to come in light because everybody Toto Toto looked like somebody just like punched him in the face.
Yeah,
after
like he was on his phone during like the podium celebration.
Yeah. after a 1-2. So in my mind, I'm just like, whatever the calculations had to be, whatever the strategists calculated, they probably realized come lap 40-ish, they started making the calls like, hey guys, just so you know, there's a good chance we're going to come in underweight.
But if that's the case, then you let Lewis pass. Then you make the call to let Lewis pass, right? Like I think that's what you have to do. It's like if that's so. I don't know if that actually is the fact, or if they were to make that calculation, understand that he's likely underweight, and still let him stay ahead of Lewis, that is just absolute mismanagement. So I'm guessing that's probably not what happened, but you never know.
But I don't even consider that mismanagement, because what do you lose? You lose nothing. If you think about it, if you think he's underweight,
you just have a lot of egg on your face. You gain egg on your face because now you have the whole trophy rigmarole.
Yeah, but then you're rolling the dice. You're hoping that his car is not one of the couple that gets weighed. You're like, hopefully it's not his car that's one of the ones that get weighed. Hopefully this, hopefully that. Because I think they weigh maybe 4 or 5 cars. They have the capability to do that after every race. So you're kind of rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice. You're literally rolling the dice. It's like, why do it upon myself? And I shall trust in thine stars to settle thine future. I think that's what they thought. I think that's what they thought. I think they just said, you know what? We'll chalk it up. It's worst case scenario, we lose the race. But like if we do it upon ourselves, like, but you never know. Who knows if they let Lewis pass? Who knows if they decide to check Russell's car? And maybe they check Hamilton's car.
Yeah, they check Hamilton's car.
And Hamilton, who made 2 steps, and they're like, oh, yeah, Hamilton's all good. Who knows? Which makes this even better.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It makes it even better, in my opinion. I would love if that's the case. Because it so goes into, like, this sense of just do right by that man. Like, I don't care what's going on. I don't care that he's not going to be there next year. You may not like how it's done, but don't forget everything he's accomplished for you guys, like in the past, and what he's done for this team. Just do right by him. End this on a good note. Just do right by him. Don't do any funny business, because actually you would almost want George to just race, because in your mind you would hope that he proves you right in terms of he's a great future for this team.
And he is absolutely a great future for the team. Yeah.
So like just let the chips fall as they may. Don't dibble and dabble in the mix. Let it be. Let it be. That's my final point. But yeah, that was Spa. Quite an interesting race. You know, we had
it was a great race.
It was a great
really
race.
Fun.
It for all the talk, like it was still a good race. Like we had the disqualification. Everybody moved up one. You know, everybody just kind of and I do appreciate that as a team. They owned up to it immediately. They were like, our bad. We did it. It's on us.
Yeah.
That's it. They wrote their statement. Bam. You know, Lewis gets the winner. I'm happy. So yeah, good race. A good way to get into the summer break, which has started off pretty interestingly, I have to say.
Summer break, which helped.
What do you want to start with first?
I mean, okay, so we're what, like we're over an hour into this right now. Do we want to get into this now, or do we want to maybe do like another podcast next week, or we can do it either way?
I almost feel like doing another podcast, because I feel like if we give this another week, something else juicy is going to happen. Just juicy, something else juicy. So like There's a lot here to where, like, especially like the Audi stuff. I think there's a lot going on there. I think that's very interesting. like because I feel like the Audi stuff may have more lasting effects on Red Bull.
Yes, I think there's a little bit of a reminder of how we started the season with Christian Horner, kind of killing the culture at Red Bull, and now you had Adrian Newey leave, and now you've got John Wheatley, who was their sporting director. He's going to Audi. There's a lot of meat on the bone there.
Yeah, and I feel like I really want to dive into this a little bit more because I feel like there are a lot of storylines. You know, you have Carlos with Williams. There's a lot going on there.
That's great. I think we could talk about just the plan for Williams in the future.
Yeah, that's like a good amount there. Bierman and Ocon. Like there's a lot of meat on the bone. I don't want to do it in injustice and try to squeeze it into the last couple minutes of this episode. That's an episode in itself. So guys, I mean, this episode ran longer than we expected, but I think it kind of worked out because silly season deserves its own episode.
It does.
And I feel like it needs silly season needs just a little bit more time to ripen. Like give it another week, and I feel like there's going to be more there that's going on. So we're gonna do our own silly season episode, guys. Expect it in probably another week and a half. But Spa just took up more of our time. Plus, we had some technical issues there. Interesting race. Great way to end the season, and great way to end the first half of the season.
Yep.
And I have to say, I'm so happy that the beginning of the season is not a reflection of where we are right now.
We've come a long way.
Oh yeah. Like
it's going to be very exciting to see how the season finishes out.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. The Red Bull storyline is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I can't wait to talk about that because there's so many moving parts there.
There's so many moving parts at Red Bull. That Mercedes seat is still open.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot going on. But guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We can't wait to come back for another one to talk about silly season. But I'm Ricardo.
I'm Amravir.
And we'll catch you on the next episode of Time on Track. If you have any comments, suggestions, or just want to say hi, you could reach us at our individual Instagrams. Mine is Ready, Set, Watch. We have Amravir with Meta World Cool.
Yep.
And, shoot us a message. We appreciate any messages, any comments, any suggestions. We can't wait to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. Let us know what you thought about Lewis versus George Russell.
Yes. Yes. Let us know if which one of us do you think is seeing this in a different light? Like, am I wrong for thinking that they should have just gave this one to Lewis? Is Amravir right in thinking that, hey, let him race? This was an amazing race by Russell. Like, where do you see this? Am I thinking too much into this? Maybe I am. After my McLaren episode, I don't know. I don't know. I may have to tone things down because I was immediately shown a different light by the next week from my McLaren episode. So who knows? Like, I hope this doesn't mean Lewis does bad in the next race. I hope he continues in excellent form because he's looking amazing. But we'll see what happens. With that, we'll sign off, guys, and we can't wait to see you next time.
See ya.